Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Rosalind, and I'm so excited to be with you here today on Dyslexia Global Conversation. Today, we're hanging out with a fantastic sister of mine, all the way from Nigeria. But first of all, I just want to say Happy Independence Day to Ghana. Happy Independence Day. You are 67 years old today, and we wish you, as a nation, we wish you all the best. But we hope that everything that you do, when it comes to education, you have dyslexic people in mind, you have us in mind, and make room accommodations and things that can also benefit us. So we say Happy Independence Day. So today we're going to hang out with a lady that I admire so much, and she is a very hardworking lady, a resilient lady, and you will understand why I'm using these words to describe her. But briefly, I am going to bring her and then introduce her. So let's all welcome her. If you're watching, we say wherever you are, good evening or good afternoon. So welcome, Oladoyin. We are so
Thank you.
excited to have you on Dyslexia Global Conversations. I'm going to quickly introduce you briefly, and then you will take over and introduce yourself. So Oladoyi is a mental health professional and a founder and director of One World Africa Foundation, a dyslexia-focused initiative. This inspired She was inspired by her own personal experience with dyslexia, and she started this organization in 2015. She has done extensive research work on dyslexia and its management. I can't wait to hear that. And modification and strategies to fit the Nigerian child. She boasts over 7 years of experience in training parents and teachers on dyslexia and its management, as well as provide consultation on inclusion management and implementation. She's has a global reputation as dyslexia advocate. Her expertise is further enhanced by extensive training in psychological first aid, cognitive behavioral therapy, and trauma informed approaches. Like, it goes on and goes on. She's co-authored some books, and I have personally have one of the books here in my home, and so I'm so excited to have you here. You are no stranger to me. We hug each other all the time through different virtual platforms. So Ladovi, thank you for agreeing to share your evening with us today. This is Dyslexia Global Conversation, and you can go on if there is anything I didn't say in your profile to add to it. But first of all, who is Oladoyi and how are you associated with dyslexia?
Hello, good evening, Roslyn. Thank you so much for that amazing introduction. Always warms my heart to see you. I'm like, is that really me we're talking about here? So it's been a journey, it's been a full circle moment, because, I went from that child who was, struggling in class to this adult that, has done this, has done that, and all of those things. And which is one of the things that I like to encourage dyslexics with the fact that you can change the narrative around your dyslexia, right? So to answer the question, who is Oladoyin? Oladoyin is a young lady who is in her 20s and who is trying to change the narrative around dyslexia. Can you still hear me? Okay, great.
Yes.
Through my life, and then trying to also help as many persons as I can with, because knowing
Okay, viewers, just bear with us. On the continent, we have issues with connectivities, and so Oladoyin will come on very soon, but she started by sharing her story about herself being dyslexic and what led her to also start the One World Africa
What I
Foundation.
went through, I wouldn't want any other person to go through, what they went through. So I just wanted to share my story so that other people can also relate to it.
Let us know where you are watching from, please. Let us know where you're watching from. My name is Rosalind, and today I am your host on Dyslexia Global Conversation. And we're hanging out with our friend, sister Oladoyin from Lagos, Nigeria. Bear with us for connectivity issue. She will be here with us right now.
Can you hear me?
Welcome back.
Yay. Sorry, I live in Lagos, Nigeria. Bear
I
with
was
me.
just telling them. I was just telling them.
Okay. So pretty much again, my life is, or everything that I do is driven by the fact that I want to be able to change the narratives for the Nigerian child about dyslexia. And I'm also very passionate about psychological intervention, so therapy, because in this part of the world, in addition to dyslexia, we do not, acknowledge things like mental health conditions and stuff like that. And my interest in mental health was also inspired by my dyslexia condition, because, if you live with dyslexia and it's undiagnosed and you have to face constant emulations and all of those things in the school system, there is very high chance that you deal with issues of self-esteem and probably depression and all of those things. So in navigating my own dyslexia and some of the psychological conditions that developed as a result, I also am passionate about mental health in general, trying to create advocacy for it, trying to ensure that we can do prevention rather than cure, because people say therapy is expensive. So, how about before we get to the point of needing therapy, these are some of the things you can do to help yourself. So, that's pretty much, about me, just a passionate young girl trying to change the narrative around the things I'm passionate about due to my personal experience.
Beautiful, beautiful. At what age did you discover to be dyslexic?
So, whenever I get asked that question, I want to say 16 because 16 was really when I officially knew that it was dyslexia. But in retrospect, I would say that I've always known that something was off, right? But when did we put the name to it? Dyslexia was when I was 16 years old, freshly after I decided to drop out of A levels, and I came up with a decision that day, and I'm like, I'm done. And this was after many years of struggling through the academic system. A backstory: I went through school like every normal child, and as my parents would always describe me as a child, I was curious. My mother would always claim that my first words were why. Most of the time they say people's first words are papa, mama, and all of them. My mom always claims that my first word is why, because I was a curious child. If you tell me to do something, I ask you why. According to her, though, you know. So with all of that curiosity, I was looking forward to school, genuinely looking forward to school. But I get into that system, and all of the expectations I had were, down because of the experience I had with learning. And that became my reality very quickly. And also, I'm left handed as well. And I don't know if it happens in all the African countries, but in the Nigerian school system, we've often found that teachers always try to force students to use their left hand to use their right hand because they believe that using the left hand is wrong. So those are some of like the conditions that things I struggled with really, because teachers flogging me and humiliating me because of what I couldn't do. So that just formed what life was like in school for me. So in A levels, when I could think on my own and make some decisions, not all, because I'm still you know still under my parents. I made up my mind in 2015 that I was done. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. I am just about done, and I was really ready to down whatever consequences came with that, whether it meant selling pepper, whatever it meant. I was just done. Anything but school for me. And that was when I then discovered the word dyslexia. And that came from one day typing into Google, am I dumb? because I genuinely was curious. I wanted to know why I couldn't do what everybody could do. And then Google, Google is your friend and everybody. So Google came up with ideas and suggestions as to, you know, poems about being dumb and stupid, right? But I came across this article by Susan, and it was talking about learning difficulties and why some students would presume that they were dumb. And I came across the word dyslexia and it felt like an eureka moment. For the first time, it made sense. And that started my journey to also wanting to get diagnosis as to, am I really dyslexic? And then, in searching for diagnosis, it became apparent and obvious that we had a resource problem in Nigeria because it was hard to find someone to diagnose me. And that started my journey.
Wow. 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 So, I'm interested in this. You said that when you were lefty and they tried
Yes.
changing you to right with using your right hand. Do you think that had also an impact
Yes.
on yeah, like your learning?
So I would say that fortunately for me, I had parents who insisted that they left me with my left hand. So I'm still a lefty. So this all of the difficulties that I had was in addition to being left-handed, I also struggled to learn. But knowing to answer that question, they weren't successful to change me because my parents stopped it from happening, and so I'm still a lefty up until date, and yeah. But I do know that there is a relation between, fine motor functions and the brain, right? So if you're left-handed, there's the brain dominance connection on the right hemisphere, and if you're left-handed, there's the left-handed right hemisphere, right-handed left hemisphere. Thank you very much. So I do know that there's that connection, and it's always very important that you don't try to change people when you don't try to change the hands that people use to write, especially children, because there's already a neuropsychological connection happening there.
That's quite interesting. The reason why I asked that was, we have the dyslexia advocacy program ongoing. And
Yes.
last week, one of the fellows asked the same question, that if there is a study or something on, because it's true, in Africa we try to change that. If you are writing with your left, they will always try to change you to write with your right. So she was asking if we have a study of any impact on that. If so, when you mentioned, I just clicked to my mind, and I told her I haven't seen any study. However, I do know that it's not an advisable thing to do to try to change children's from their left to their right, or try to even do right to the left. So that's why I asked you that question. So thank you for answering that. Now, when you discovered to be dyslexic, are you still here with me? Okay, I think we lost her again. She will come back. If you're watching, wherever you're watching from, and you have any questions, please put it in the chat and I will ask our guest for you. So, Oladoyi has a background in psychology, mental health, and also she provides support services for adults with dyslexia. And so the adults, please come closer. Today you're going to receive some tidbits as to how you can navigate your dyslexia adulthood life. So that's Oladoyi's specialization. She has a lot in store for you. As we're waiting for her, I will take the liberty of we quickly taking a break, but stay on. I'm showing you some snippets of what's happened at the Dyslexia Education Stakeholders Forum last year. And this year, get yourself prepared, it's coming on in October. And for now, our date is the 30th of October. So get a feel of some things that happen over there.
it's become evident that we will not achieve the Sustainable Development Goals unless we make significant investments in education. Here, Ghana recognizes the importance of that investment, and indeed one of the 5 accelerators for Ghana is investing in education, particularly skills, lifelong learning, and skills and competencies to build a Ghana nation that is self-reliant. In that context, it is important that there is no one left behind. Dyslexia affects a large percentage of the population, and often, because it's not a visible disability, not enough investment is put in place. As Ghana invests, we encourage them to make sure that they're making the right investments in training, putting the right resources in place, providing teachers who are understanding, and working on advocacy and assessment capacity so that we can detect early on, learn about those who are affected by dyslexia, and make the adjustments for them in the main classroom in an inclusive way, not outside in a separate space. We have this challenge across the whole of society, and we particularly, speakers here have talked about the workplace and ensuring that employers understand this, that employers make adjustments for it, that they also make investments to help their own staff and nurture their staff around this. And as with everything concerning disability, it is not just helping a person who may be affected by a disability, but it's helping the whole workforce to understand this. Because when everybody understands, then we create the enabling environment for those individuals to be empowered and to actually act. So we know that the key instrument from which a budget is built is around legislation and policy. Ghana has made various strides in terms of different areas of human rights, including on disability. But increasingly we're seeing a gap in Ghana's own legislative policy around disability from what is in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And indeed, the UN is supporting a program that is looking to develop, among other things, a new bill, an amended bill that will go to Parliament, hopefully before the end of this government, and get passage. That bill will provide a lot of legal impetus for the kinds of investment that we're talking about. It is multi-sectorial, and it will discuss this in terms of health, education, social protection, and expectations of even the business community. And so this legislation is extremely important and forms the basis upon which citizens of Ghana can hold the government to account on its investment strategy as expressed through the budget. We're confident that this will happen and are working with the Ghana Disability Council, the Ghana Federation of Disability Organizations, for them to advocate for this, and of course with the Parliament to ensure that this happens, hopefully before the end of the life of this Parliament.
Welcome back. We took a short break to give you some insights of what happens at the Dyslexia Education Stakeholders Forum. If you want to get full version of it, please go on to our YouTube. We have the full recording there, and please watch it. Send us your thoughts and let us know how we should make this year's own different. I am happy to say we have Oladoyin back, and so we will continue our conversation. Welcome back,
Hi.
Oladoyin.
Thank you so much.
Oh.
Your startup pack in Nigeria should be using multiple SIMs so that when one trips off, you jump on the next. So I quickly had to set up another, system very quickly. And I'm also trying to log in on my laptop. So at some point I will just swap, but it's just so that we have the best and nothing is interrupting us moving on from
that is fine. We are on the continent. We know the issues that comes from here when it comes to internet connectivity. So we are just grateful that you are here. Now let's continue the conversation.
Yes.
When you found out to be dyslexic, then what changed?
So anger. That's the first thing I felt. I was angry. I was livid. I literally was thinking, it's time for me to sue the Minister of Education and sue all my teachers and sue everybody that I could sue. In my small mind at the time, that was all that was going through my head. How can I sue all of you? Because why would you flog me? Why would you insult me? Why would you do this? I was ready to sue everybody. Then after anger came reality. What was obtainable. I cannot sue I wish I could, but I can't, right? So what changed really for me, immediately after I figured out it was dyslexia, was anger. Then came reality. So from the point of reality, I now started having to make a plan. So we're here now. And now at least we have a name. Now at least it makes sense. Now at least I'm not stupid. Now at least all that I experienced has an explanation. Now at least it was a lot of now at least, as you can tell. So I then had to move on from my anger and figure out how to help myself. And from figuring out how to help myself, I started talking about it because I realized that, there's been a lot of shame. I've lived, or I had lived rather, with a lot of shame due to my dyslexia. At the time, I didn't know what it was, but I was so ashamed of who I was as a person. I didn't think I was good enough. And this has started to even impact other relationships beyond school. Because with friendships, I would not want to step forward with friendships because I didn't think I was good enough to be a friend to you. All of those things. So there was a whole circle of living below my full capacity because I didn't think I was good enough. So from knowing that there was a name, I then started to repair. I wanted to heal. So I went on an healing journey, trying to help myself. Resources were now limited. So this was me who was super pumped and ready to heal, help myself, and then I couldn't find resources. Like, you know, that was another reason to be angry. But I channeled that anger into creating those resources for myself and then sharing it for people who needed it. That was when I started talking about dyslexia on the internet. And then I also started talking about therapy. So that's why, there's the psychological, my even when I talk about dyslexia, it's from a psychological standpoint. I do know that, dyslexia impacts you academically, but I approach dyslexia from a place of mental health because I know that dyslexia impacts how a person sees themselves, how a person feels about themselves. So I approach it from a place of what's identity you formed about yourself before dyslexia, after dyslexia, how are we moving forward? So really, that's what changed for me. Um, and yeah, we're here now. I'm no longer angry. I'm still angry though, but not as much as I was.
Wow. It is interesting the narration you were giving about your experience. Now I want to take it from what was the perspective of your parents? How were they dealing with the times when you score last or low in class and they can't, because you're very vocal. You see how you're speaking? Somebody will be like, how can this person be dyslexic? And so how was
Hmm.
the experience for your parents? How were they taking it? Because we have parents who are trying to navigate
Hmm.
this process.
So for me, as a child, as a matter of fact, I was that child that I was vocal, like you just emphasized. And one of the things my mom said was one of the first things I learned how to do was ask you why. That child who would tell you how she feels it. They always thought I was going to even be a lawyer, and they had expectations. But for some reason, this person who is vocal, who is challenging you, and who is asking why, when it comes to school activities, she just cowers. So that was a confusion for them. So at first they thought maybe she just doesn't want to do school. Maybe she's just being stubborn. Maybe she's just being lazy. Maybe she's just trying to be avoidant because how does she have all of this energy for this? And then when it comes to this, her stomach is paining her or something is happening to her and all of those things. So at first, with my dad, my dad was maybe both of them in retrospect. Sometimes I don't. It feels like I'm about to call out my mom. So let me revert a bit and say it as it is. So so for me, for instance, my dad is the kind of person that his approach to discipline is to keep quiet for a minute, and after a while, he'll give you a piece of his mind, and then you would be humbled. But my mom, she's fiery on the spot. She can give you a knock and all of those things. So that's why the experience was different with the both of them. But in retrospect, I realized that they were doing the same thing. They were both on the same page on how they were going to approach it. It's just that their approaches to it was different. So I felt like my mom was always hard on me because she would challenge you. She would tell you that, is that the book that you're supposed to be reading and things like that. So, and it affected even going out. If I wanted to go for like a sleepover at a friend's, my mom would tell me that is that your focus in life right now? Sleepover, things like that. And they then had me doing lesson and I had lesson teachers for almost everything and anything. And so yeah, that was their response to it. Their response was really they were clueless, and they now thought that they were motivating me, but their approach to motivating me was rather demoralizing me rather than motivating me.
Wow. 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 So then you found your path. You tried to navigate the journey and create your own learning ability. And you went on to school, you studied psychology, you're now a mental health advocate, you support adults with dyslexia. How did you do it to turn your life around?
That is a very interesting question, and I love to answer it. And it brings me to always encouraging parents or anyone who's even doing dyslexia intervention to approach dyslexia intervention from a place of strength. Why? So we have this young person who has grown to hearing what they're not good at. You know, we have this young person who through school system they didn't feel good enough. One of the ways that helped me was after school, after I decided to drop out of school, I then started to find things that I was good at, because the reality for me was that now that you have dropped out, how are you going to earn? How are you going to survive? And then I started to learn a skill. Before I was first prone to, I decided to, do culinary because I like to cook. And I felt like, this could be it. But upon going into culinary school and learning how to cook, I came to the realization that maybe I do not want to cook professionally because I enjoy cooking, but for family. So I'm that person who wants to whip up his bread, just to do something fancy in the house. But I don't want you calling me to order a cake. It's not my thing. It wasn't really my thing. So the next thing that I wanted to discover now was what else could I do? Then that threw me into the world of design. So I learned event decoration, interior decoration, set design, and all of those things. And that started my entrepreneurial journey where I was designing spaces and working on things like that. From doing that, it restored my self esteem. I was finally good at something. And I stopped seeing myself as small or not good enough, at least in some areas, because it still impacted, relationships. But in terms of work, I stopped seeing myself as not good enough because I could see the things that I was doing and everybody was complimenting, and it started to make sense. So it was from that point of seeing what I was good at, I was now ready to challenge the things I previously wasn't good at, because it then became a question of if I can do this. So what then happened with this? What was going on then? And I went back into, going back, looking back into it. And that was the day I then Googled one day and asked Google, like, what's going on? And then Google gave me some set of responses. And, all of that summed up me talking about my healing journey. And from talking about my healing journey, I found that I was not alone, because whenever I talk about therapy, or even talk about dyslexia, I started to own it, because when you when you own things, even from a place of if something happened to you and you can own it, then nobody can insult you with it anymore because you have owned it, right? So when I started to own it on social media and talk about these things, there was no longer shame attached to it. But it was not a one day journey. There are times when I would post something on social media, I feel so confident about it, and I'm waiting to see the responses. And when the responses are not going the way I want it to go, I will delete it after a while. But I then grew into leaving it for longer and longer and longer and longer and longer, and that was how I built stamina in advocacy. And then I would find that parents would reach out, people would reach out, people would connect. I would say something and people would say, me too. What did you then do? So people then started to reach out to me for resources, asking me questions. And the more questions they asked me, I could only answer from my personal experience. But some experiences were different from mine. Most experiences were different from mine. So the questions became more than I could, became more than, what I knew. And that delved me more into research and looking for answers. And here we are, still looking for answers for people's dyslexia journeys.
Wow. So if a parent is watching you now and have assessed their child and turned out their child is dyslexic, maybe we should take it from this angle. If a parent is watching you now and guessing what is wrong with my child, what is your advice to them from that moment to when they will do assessment, and after assessment, what do they should they do?
First thing I would say is don't live in denial. Because a lot of parents, and I understand it even now that I'm studying, now that I'm in like practicing psychology, I understand it. I know that there's a place of grief. So people experience grief not only when someone dies. For instance, if you're a parent and you're about to give birth, you have expectations on what you want your child to be, the kind of things you want to do with your children, things like that. So when you then give birth and you have your child in school and your child, seemingly, I'm quoting not normal because normal is overrated, but seemingly, quoting that, and you find that your child is struggling with academics, there is denial. You go through all the stages of grief because this child is not meeting the expectations of the idea that you formed in your head. So that forces you to now live in denial. So what I would first say is, do not live in denial. Assess it for what it is. And the beauty of it is the moment early intervention is beautiful. All of the things that I do now as an adult are late intervention. So I still had to go back to learn to read the proper way. I still had to go back to school. I still had to do everything. Even now as an adult, the things that I'm purposely doing. I'm taking a parenting course at the moment, but I'll get to that. But the things that I'm purposely doing to heal my childhood and repair those gaps that were not covered. So if you're a parent and you're seeing the signs in your children, I am congratulating you because it's your opportunity to do something and do something immediately. So don't spend time living in denial. How about just spend time assessing resources that you can use to help your child? And when you do an assessment and you find out for a fact that your child then has dyslexia, assess your child's strength. Try to help them discover skills that they have. And I preach for strength based intervention a lot. Like I said, it was from seeing what I was good at in other areas. That was what boosted my confidence and repaired the, damaged self esteem on academic area. And I was able to go back to school. All right. So discover what your child is good at. And you can even use it as an incentive. You can create school curriculum or school activity around other hobbies that your child like. So you can let your child know when maybe your child likes to dance. So we can read through dancing. We can do some multisensory reading activities while we're dancing. There's so many things. There's limitless possibilities of what you can do as long as you start to act very fast. So that's what I would tell you as a parent. Don't live in denial. Accept it and find it as an avenue to help your child immediately dig out the good in your child and stop stressing on what you feel like your child isn't doing well enough in.
So it doesn't mean that the child is quote unquote useless and nothing can be good.
No, it doesn't mean that. As a matter of fact, dyslexics have been found to have average to above average IQ. It has nothing to do with the intelligence of the child. And dyslexics have strength as long as you help them develop it. So as a matter of fact, the earlier you do, the better. It has no nothing to do with your child being okay. So I'm trying to sure.
That is not connected yet. Okay, hello. As we wait for our guests to get back to us, please, if wherever you're watching from, let us know in the chat. I see we have people watching from Nigeria, Kenya, Botswana, Ghana, Namibia. You are all watching here. Let us hear from you. If you have any question for our guest, let us hear from you. But you can imagine such an and somebody Anthony says so eloquent in putting through your lived experience, very very vocal. But then tell Oladoyi to translate what she's saying onto a paper, and that's where if she doesn't have any assistive technology she's using or somebody helping her out, that's where you see her struggle and you immediately judge her as you're not good. But if I tell you this girl's experiences, the amazing work she's doing, you would hold your mouth by saying this person is not good just because they cannot put their thoughts into writing or they make terrible mistakes when they write. And so, parents, if you're watching this, I hope this encourages you. Your child is not dumb. Your child is not lazy. Your child has so much potential in them. And before anybody will even be able to support you, whether it's the school or somebody else, you as a family must know the value of your child before anybody can set in. Yes, we know in Africa when it comes to stigmatization, people don't know things and they're asking, so how is that child? How is your child? What class is she now? Oh, my daughter has gotten admission to this school. Did your child pass the exams? Where is she going? All those questions can be overwhelming for you. We understand that. But we are also here. I'm dyslexic. Oladoyi is dyslexic. There's so many of us who are dyslexic. And we are telling you that there is nothing wrong with your child. And so we need you to embrace this journey so that we can work with you and make sure that your child get the best form of support. And trust me, in the future, you get back to us and say that we told you so. So let's welcome Oladoyi back to the stage and we continue our conversation. Welcome back, Doyi. Let me know if you can hear
Thank
me.
you so much. I want to really apologize. Yes, can you hear
It's,
me?
it's okay. We can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Awesome. So before you left, I asked you the question about if um, dyslexic kids are really not like useless or something, as in quotes, how society perceive them, and you were trying to give your insight as to how some of the world
Yes.
XYZs are dyslexic.
Mhm. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for that. So, as I was saying, dyslexia has been found, or people living with dyslexia have been found to have average to above average IQs. So it has no link to intelligence. When you look at it, difference. So it is specific to only learning. It has nothing to do with the imagination or the thought or the thinking abilities of a child. And we have a lot of people who thrive with their dyslexia. Rosalind thrives with dyslexia. I thrive with dyslexia. And if we want to think on a global scale, we have a lot of renowned innovators and entrepreneurs who have dyslexia. The difference for all of these people, however, who are thriving with dyslexia is intervention. They discovered their skill and they maximize it. So if you are a parent who finds out this as an avenue to dig in, I was saying something about taking a parenting course. And one of the reasons why I'm taking that is because of the reality of the fact that there's high likelihood that I would have a child who would have dyslexia. And I've had conversations with a lot of dyslexic people, down to people who believe that they don't even want to have children because of the experience that they've had with dyslexia. But I have a thriving identity around my who have dyslexia. The difference now is I know what to do. So now what I'm doing is I'm preparing myself. I'm already taking trips. At what age can you start to introduce things? Multisensory activities that you can do through play for a baby. I'm already learning it because I don't want my child to ever feel less or feel not smart enough at any point in their life. If you're a parent and God has placed a child like that in your hands, you also exist to change that narrative for your child.
Beautiful. I love that. I think I need to join you on the parenting course so that because the severity of my dyslexia, if any child of mine take over me, then I can give that support to the child even at home before they go into the school so they are not frustrated. But as long as I'm alive, I don't think anybody will be able to frustrate my child. Now, let's come to adults with dyslexia, which is the subject that is in your domain. If somebody hears us speaking today and said, I can recognize what you are talking about, I'm going to have assessments, and it turns out they are dyslexic. What should they do? How would they thrive? What should they put in place to make their work easy to do? Because it comes to the workplace, mostly if you are an adult, or if you're an adult but you still haven't navigate your life to be able to make something out of your life. What should you do as an adult?
Okay. So the dynamics for assessment for an adult with dyslexia is different from children. With children, once we do assessment, we talk early intervention and intervention. For adults as well, we talk intervention, but it is late intervention. So we first need to even do an assessment. Apart from your dyslexia assessment, we first need to do assessment on knowing for a fact if you've developed any psychological conditions as a result of your dyslexia. Because let's do a scenario, for instance. If I was an adult with dyslexia who my realities was in school, I was written out of the system, I dropped out of school, I then now needed to survive, I then now started juvenile delinquencies and trying to do petty things to survive, because survival is one of the very key things for anybody, right? So I'm just painting a scenario of some people's realities. So I dropped out of school. I need to make money. I need to feed myself. I'm hungry. Then I start, petty thief. I'm stealing and things like that. And that's one case of juvenile delinquencies. And there's been established the fact that there's a dyslexia to prison pipeline, according to research. Another reality can be that you went through school, you barely made it through school, but you graduated from a undergraduate BSc degree, but then you didn't have a choice for the degree that you studied. You just wanted to get by. So now you have a degree, but your degree cannot give you options into career choices that you would originally like. So you feel small about yourself. So you are not even advocating for promotion, or you're not even pushing for promotion or pushing for managerial roles, because you feel like, I don't want people to recognize me as a scam. I'm not good enough for this. Those are the different realities. I just wanted to give you a broad range of what could be. Now, if you have done assessment, the next thing really is to also assess what is your reality. Where you are. Do you have a certificate? Do you have a skill? What are the things that you have? So it's rehabilitation now. because we want to know if you have developed psychological conditions, if you're abusing substance, if you are depressed. We need to know where you are at. So the dynamic is different for everybody, and whatever their realities are is dependent on the kind of community they were in and kind of families they were born into. For me, or even when I thought that my situation was terrible, I hear other stories and I'm like, oh wow, right? So I was opportune to have parents. I was pissed with them before, but I realized now that they didn't give up on me for all of the things that all of the times they didn't know better though. They didn't understand what I was going through. So what they taught was helping me was what they kept on doing. So they kept on paying for lesson teachers and pumping me with lessons, but it was not helping me, right? But for some other people, they don't have that kind of network of support and they are in the streets. So again, dynamics are different for everybody who have dyslexia. So if you're an adult who has dyslexia, or if you're trying to navigate it, we need to do, or you need to assess, where are you at? At what point of it are you still struggling with your identity with dyslexia? Are you still struggling with who you are? Do you have a self-awareness of what your potentials are? Do you have a BSc degree, or were you unable to go through school? Those are some of the things that would help build a roadmap as to where do we go from here. So it's different for everybody. But what I would say is, for the different categories, or I have been able to group the categories to two realities or three, and one of it is adults who have psychological conditions from dyslexia. For that, we have support groups, where, and Rosalind is about to also bring out some advocates to the world for us who would be able to facilitate support groups like this in African countries. So we have support groups where we can have consultant psychologists come and talk about things like depression, self-esteem, imposter syndrome, and how you can help yourself with it, practical strategies. But for some people, you actually need one-on-one therapy support, right? So support groups are great, but for some cases, you need one-on-one therapy support. So that's one category of people, those who have psychological conditions due to their dyslexia. Then we have another group of people who are probably in the school system and are stuck. So then we have programs like the Study Skills program that I was talking to you about, where we are then trying to find out how you can navigate through school and get the best out of it, things like that. We also, embedded in that is also things like skill acquisition, discovering skill set that you have. So if you're in school, you do the study skills. If you're not in school and you don't have plans to go back to school, what then are you good at? What skill can you develop so that you can thrive? Because we refuse as a tribe to let you be less than yourself. We know that you have potentials that are more and more and bigger than you can think. So it is, how can we help? How can we facilitate it? Then the third group are those who are in the work system, and they're struggling to thrive in the workplace because of their dyslexia. So we have the executive function intervention program. This one talks about productivity, procrastination, growth mindset, how you can even utilize AI, how you can also advocate for yourself in the workplace to ensure that they are giving you tasks based on your strength, and they're not giving you tasks that you will struggle with. And so if you can even advocate for yourself, you will know that when you're advocating for yourself, you are not telling your HR that I can't do this thing because of my dyslexia. Rather, you're saying, I am great at this. I would be able to provide value for you in this, rather than being dormant when you give me this, because even when I speak to HR professionals, one of the things is, if I'm employing a staff, I need value for it. So if I come on board as a consultant for you, that's my strength. Do you understand? So that way, it is productive for everybody. They're not seeing us as liabilities in the workplace, because you are coming correct. You know what you're good at, and you are able to advocate. Give me this task. I am better suited here than here. Not, I can't do this because unfortunately the world does not have. We can't be petted. If you have dyslexia, it is not a lazy badge. It is your sign to try. Show the world what you can do.
Wow. There's a lot to digest here. And we have some few minutes left to go. If you are watching us, please, if you have a question, you can ask us. There is a question for us, and I will bring it up soon so you can share. Somebody is asking for the parenting course. But you said something with psychological challenges with dyslexia. And I really want you to hint on that again. How does someone develop psychological issues because of dyslexia? Why? How?
Thank you very much for that question. So, dyslexia is a difficulty that impacts your learning. So the way people could develop psychological conditions as a result of their dyslexia is the kind of responses that they get at that point when they're struggling to learn. So for me as a child, I was in the school system, I was struggling to learn. But it became a comorbid situation because I had teachers who would humiliate me because I couldn't learn. It became, a big deal because, you have different socialization groups where, you have people have homes, people have church. I even experienced church hurt because the time when I dropped out of school, I had people who would say that, why would my mom allow me and watch me do that I will soon get pregnant, so those different kind of things that you hear start to form your reality because at the time as well you don't have an identity as to why you're struggling to learn, right? So it's a lot of you're hearing different people say different things, and you in the middle of this you're also still searching for answers. You don't understand what you're going through, and there's so many other people who are also creating narratives. And as a child, we as childs are like phones. They absorb information, they absorb everything that is going on around them. So that's how you can develop psychological conditions with dyslexia. The responses that people have to your learning difficulty would then form your identity around self. So you can then become depressed because you don't think you're good enough. Or you can have a terrible imposter syndrome where, even for me now as an adult, despite all the things I have been able to do for myself, there are times when I overthink things. There are projects that I'm ready to launch, and my imposter syndrome would not let me launch them because I'm trying to cross my T's and dot my I's, and I've crossed them multiple times, but I'm still not ready to stop crossing them because I still feel like, there's something, and it follows you. You carry it everywhere. So, which is also an encouragement to teachers and anybody watching this. If you have someone who is struggling to learn, that is not a time to emulate them or put them on the spot or make them feel worse than they already do, because the reality is all of the things that you do, even when they've left the school system, it would follow them. They would carry it. So don't be that person that would be the reason why a child is depressed tomorrow, or a child is resulting to substance use.
I totally agree with you. And I ask you to hint again on that because as a person, myself, I'm dyslexic. So I understand exactly what you're talking about. I remember, I think I was at the age of 13, 14. I was so fed up with everything that was going on. And one time I took my aunt's money and just in my mind, I knew I was telling them on paper that, you know what, I'm fed up. I'm out of the house. Nobody should look for me. But they couldn't read it because I couldn't spell what I was writing. And then I took the money and left home. I left home for 2 weeks. I left home and went to a place that nobody knew where I was. They reported it to the police, looking for me everywhere in the city that we were. Then I was far away, like 2 hours away from them, and living somewhere. The only thing that saved me was I had a phone number of one of my teachers, and I made a call from a pay phone from the house where I went. And when I made that call and he shouted, "Where are you? We are looking for you." I hung up. He was so smart and called the number again and asked, "Could you please trace where the girl who called is going?" And lady was like, "Don't worry. She came here about 2 weeks ago. She's in the house right where I am operating from," and gave them the direction to travel to come and find me. So I'm just thinking, like, if I hadn't made that call, and they
Exactly.
didn't know me, and I'm sure I would never have gone back to the house again
Mm-hmm.
because I was really fed up. What would have happened to my life? What would have
Mm-hmm.
happened to me? But you and I on this platform are not the only one who have
Yeah.
been in this situation. There are
Yeah.
so many of us, whether diagnosed or
No.
undiagnosed. There are
Yeah.
so many of us. And unfortunately, some of them end up in a bad situation
Yeah.
because, hey, we get fed up. We put on a skin that is not our skin
Mhm.
because we need to protect ourselves. So you
Yeah.
either become very stubborn and something else. So if you're watching us, whether you're being an educator or you are a parent, the words you say to a child is stuck with them because I remember every words that every teacher told me and every experiences that I had to go through in the house. I still remember it till date. And it's unfortunate that your learning ability have to let some of these things, you experience some of these things. And so if you're watching as a parent, we just want you to know that your child is not a curse or your child
Mhm.
is not troublesome. We just have to find ways to support these children. Oladovi, one thing I don't think you touched on is how was the home? Do you have siblings? And
I do have siblings.
were you being compared?
Yes. So there's an old documentary on that, by the way. It's currently at film festivals. It was shot by James Amuta, and it was the first time putting my parents on camera demanding an apology. That's an interesting one to look out for. Anyway, so yes, on the home front, I always felt different compared to my siblings, and I obviously also was compared because I'm taught of six children, so where I have five siblings, but originally first four of us first before the twins came much later. So it was, and then my elder sister is someone who likes to read and all of those things. So it didn't really help because it's very close, you know. So there was always all of that happening, and what that resulted to was me having to be independent very quickly. I formed this knowledge in my head that I'm on my own. I don't have my own person. I just have to survive on my own and be on my own. So even now as an adult, my siblings never did anything to hurt me really, but I had to form that knowledge of I'm a one man soldier. I am on my own and all that. So now, despite the fact that I have five siblings, I'm not close to any of my siblings. I'm really still a one man soldier. I still look out for myself. I haven't learned to depend on other people because one of my coping mechanisms then was to protect myself and look out for myself and just be there for myself, and it has followed me even now as an adult. And this is how dyslexia can impact you because for a fact, even with relationships, right? um yeah, we're talking about the fact that I'm too independent. I need to date somebody. Anyway, so all that, it follows you, really, it really follows you everywhere you go. And be careful if you have a child in your hands right now. Whatever you do can really shape their future. Right now, despite being an advocate for dyslexia, despite being certified in psychology, I am still dealing with some of these things consciously because I need to repair them. I can't transfer trauma.
Me too. I am still repairing myself because I, despite me being okay in my career and whatever, it doesn't change the things that we've held on for so long.
Yeah.
And yeah, it comes up for me, especially it comes up whenever I'm picking up a new work to do, then I feel like I'm not good enough to do. Yet when I step in, I execute it perfectly. And so just let us be mindful of the things we say. There is a question here they want you to, it says, um, is it an online program? Maybe that can be a great important to some of us. Please share a lot of information about this parenting course. So the parenting course you shared, if you can share the link with me later, I will post it in our community so that those who are interested will know. But if you're a parent also struggling to navigate the process over here, Oladoyin is very good in that and can be of a great support to you and your family. And you can follow her on Instagram at One Word Africa. If you have the Africa Dyslexia Organization contact as well, you can contact us and we will be able to share her details with you if you are not able to find her on Instagram. Oladoyin, we are about wrapping up, and uh, I don't know if you have some final thoughts to give to one, parents, two, teachers, three, the general school administrators, educators in general. What do you have to leave them with?
Thank you very much for that. Very quickly, response to the parenting course, it was self-curated by myself. So I identified some topics that I realized that I need to learn about, and I pretty much just gathered resources. So it's like I created the course around my needs. But I think that what I would do is share some of these topics that because some of these topics you find them YouTube videos. So I just created topics in a curriculum, then I find videos that would just help me develop the knowledge around those things, right? So I would put them together and share that. Now, my final words to parent would be the fact that do not give up on your children. Dyslexia can be a very lonely journey, and having a parent who you know has your back would do so much good to a child's confidence and their ability to go for the stars. You know, for teachers, I would still continue to reiterate that do not hurt a person due to your lack of knowledge. Instead, seek knowledge. We're in a global world, resources are all over the place. And to make it even good, a lot of people make these resources free. So, what is your excuse? Thank you. I'm still angry, but I'm not angry. Now, to stakeholders, I would say that it's a collaborative journey. Um, let us together create a world of support. Let's create an ecosystem of support where everybody learns about dyslexia. Um, you know, even in schools, I have a program called the Dyslexia Ally Program where I teach children in primary school how to be allies to their dyslexic friend in class, right? So nobody down to a child in primary school, everybody needs to know about dyslexia so that we can be more conscious about including them, including people like myself, and stop trying to make us feel like we don't belong, because we belong. And whether or not you make space for us, we'll make space for ourselves. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's been great hanging out with you. We can go on and talk and talk and talk to dyslexic we talk. Um, but definitely you're going to come back on Dyslexia Global Conversation because we need to go in depth on adults with dyslexia and schedule you for another session to come on. Those of you who are in the African Dyslexia Advocates Program, the fellowship program, you are going to meet Oladoyin very soon to take a class with you. So you're going to meet her up. But please do not let this information stuck with you only. Make sure you share it widely to your community. You might be surprised. People may not even like it when you share it, but somebody is definitely going to watch it and is going to transform their life. This is Dyslexia Global Conversations. If you're watching us and you would like to support the work we do, please get in touch with us at www.africadyslexia.org. Any support from you is welcome. If you want to sponsor this program as well, you are welcome to support the work that we do. I want to say God bless you, my dear sister, and I
Thank you
look
so
forward
much.
to having you back, and I look forward to hanging out with you with our fellows very soon. Dear viewers, we wish you all the best. This is a midweek session. Happy Independence Day again to Ghana, and we wish you all the best. Bye bye.